This morning, we're sharing more of our exclusive conversation with R. Kelly survivor Azriel Clary. When we first spoke with her in 2019, she was just 21 years old and had lived with R. Kelly for almost 5 years. Later on, she told us she realized the relationship was abusive. She testified against Kelly during his federal racketeering and sex trafficking trial here in New York. He was found guilty on all charges and now faces life in prison. A CBS News special, Love Doesn't Hurt, R. Kelly survivor speaks, has more of our recent conversation. Love Doesn't Hurt is a phrase she used with us. It comes out today on our Viacom streaming platform, Paramount+. Here is Azriel Clary talking about leaving R. Kelly.
If you are leaving something traumatizing, more than you want to breathe, you need support. You need foundation that feels loved and that loves you. And so I'm very happy that I had that.
What do you think anybody could have said or done to help you leave the situation sooner?
Nothing.
Nothing.
Nothing. I feel like that is something that I would have had to have woken up from myself, something that I would have had to realize on myself. And, you know, a lot of people don't realize with victims, the more you try to help them, the more it upsets them sometimes, you know, because this is all they know. This is the only person that they have been comfortable around. So, you know, the more you try to separate that, the more they only run to what they know.
R. Kelly's high-profile trial brought new attention to domestic violence in this country. On average, nearly 1 in 3 women experience domestic violence. That's a very high number, and that's according to the National Domestic Violence Hotline. Thema Bryant is a clinical psychologist. She's also the director of the Culture and Trauma Research Laboratory at Pepperdine University. Good morning to you, Ms. Bryant. It's really good to have you here, Thema Bryant.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so glad you're here. I was on a plane this weekend, and 3 different people stopped me and said, you know, she could have left if she wanted to. He wasn't physically holding her. She was there for her career. She enjoyed being with him. And it's so hard to try to explain to people who haven't been in this situation. What do you say to people? Many people feel this way.
And first, let me say this is why it's so important you're doing this segment, because of the victim blaming that is so pervasive in society. People say, why didn't you say anything? And then when people speak up, they find reasons about why you did it wrong and why you should have done it differently. So there are many reasons that make it hard to leave. And one of the languages sometimes that we use is, why didn't you escape? If you use the word escape instead of just leave, you realize how big you're asking someone to push back on someone who has been really controlling their mind. So one of the big factors is fear, and we know that you increase the risk for death when you try to leave, that abusers are more likely to try to actually take your life or increase the violence when you are trying to escape, and there is a greater chance of homicide. Not only is there the fear of death, but the fear of, can I make it on my own? That this person has undermined your self-esteem, and so you really feel uncertain. And many people have turned away from you over the years. People tried to help you, they gave up on you, so then it's, I'm going to leave this person and go where? Another big factor that makes it hard to escape is love. And what is the message we always tell people is nobody's perfect, relationships aren't easy, you have to stick to it. These days, people walk away too soon. So there is this double message that if you love someone, you're going to be ride or die. You're going to stay with them no matter what. You're going to help them through it. And the love actually also keeps hope alive, right? Because with the cycle of violence, usually people are not terrible every day, all day. And so each time someone has that honeymoon phase or they're being kinder, you believe they're changing. Things are going to be better this time. And then I just say there's also the cultural and religious pressures. A lot of people will say, if they're married, I made a covenant with God, right? And I promise,
death do us part.
Yes, for better or for worse. So culturally, religiously, we have to start sending a different message that fear is not love.
So, go ahead, Nate.
Go ahead.
Well, I want to talk about the signs of domestic abuse, because when people are hopeful or they're in love, they may not realize that what they're experiencing is not normal and not okay, because in the context of their experience, it feels like it is.
Yes.
So
And she said it was normalized, too, to your point.
So what is the line where it's not just relationships are hard, but it's abuse?
Yes. So we want to pay attention to physical violence, sexual violence, and psychological violence. Usually the physical and sexual people will notice, but I'll say even the physical at first people can minimize. Like they'll say, it wasn't a punch, it was a push, or it was a grab, or they restrained me, or it was an open hand slap.
Or I shouldn't have said it.
Right.
Or I shouldn't have said that to set him off.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the blaming, because sometimes even the abuser will say, I wish you hadn't made me do that. Right? I didn't want to do that. So any form of physical violence is abuse, sexual violence, and we don't talk about this within relationships. Actually, within this nation, initially sexual assault within marriage was not a crime. So we had to really make the case that you still have ownership of your body. Because people say, well, you're with them, so then you agree to it. But the big piece is also the psychological.
Yes.
It is the verbal, it's the manipulation.
The emotional.
And it undermines your self-worth and your self-value. So then you have the public on top of that saying you're stupid, you're, out for money. And so it can really crush you. And
I'm sorry, we're going to have to leave it there. You gave us some
Dr.
good
Bryant,
advice.
this is very clarifying.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You can watch the CBS News special, Love Doesn't Hurt, R. Kelly Survivor Speaks. It's tonight on Paramount+.